Hey everyone, welcome to the Parts Girl podcast. I have Jami Alexander here with me. Welcome, Jami.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Yeah, I started seeing your post on LinkedIn, so I was like, I have to interview this girl. And thank you. Thank you for making the time.
Hey, no worries. Thank you.
And so can you just let everyone know where you work, what your role is, and just a quick summary of how you got into auto?
Absolutely. So I work for Meineke Car Care. Meineke is a corporate name, but they're independently owned and operated. I work for a local owner. I'm the general manager, so I'm in charge of all 7 locations. As far as getting in the automotive world, it kind of happened by accident. Was unfortunate how, became a single mom. I was young and I did fast food before that. I worked for McDonald's and I just couldn't do the hours that, they demanded. So I think I was 18 years old, walked into a Napa Auto Parts, told them that I was their next best delivery driver and got hired. And, the story goes from there. So
Wow.
I've been pretty blessed.
Yeah, and I feel like a lot of stories start with being a delivery driver and then just like you just move up from there. So I think it's incredible how much this industry, like how much opportunity there is just where you started. And then I also can relate to just coming from the restaurant industry or the fast food industry because I came from Subway. So
Right.
a lot of it transfers over into automotive, just the process, efficiency, all of that, because you have to be really efficient to get the food out fast.
Right. And you've got to be able to handle real-time objections and work through them and be able to make very, very split decisions, to keep everybody working together as a team.
That's very true. Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah.
So I don't miss it though.
I loved it. I absolutely loved it. I loved the fast pace of it. I loved the challenges of it. I loved the customer end of it. But it could be very chaotic. But I attribute a lot of my leadership abilities to having that, bred into me at such a young age.
Oh yeah.
And it was something that became intuitive to me. When you start in chaos like that, it makes it easier to be able to handle the chaos as you further your leadership career, I think.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, no, looking back, it was very chaotic and no, I think I did it. I did enjoy it. I did. Because I went back to it. I went to PartsEdge and then I went back to Subway.
Yeah.
Like, oh, I miss it. But I don't miss it now, I think is what I meant to say is like that was a good time in my life, but then now I'm like so happy with now that I'm like I don't want to go back to that.
Exactly. Well, instead of coming home smelling like French fries, now I just come home smelling like grease. So
Which one's better? I don't know.
Exactly.
So, okay, I have a question. Why did you start posting on LinkedIn? Because I feel like before we started recording, you said you did a lot of scrolling and you were looking, but what urged you to just kind of take that leap to start posting it? Because it can be terrifying to put yourself out there like that.
This was probably the biggest thing that I have ever done for putting my ideas out there. It's been absolutely terrifying. It forced me to come out of my comfort zone for sure. The reason why I started posting on LinkedIn is like I said, I was on here for quite a bit, just kind of behind the scenes, understanding what everybody else was talking about. And I wanted to bring something a little bit different. And I felt like as far as our industry, we were missing the relatability piece to all the important things that come together. And I've learned, first of all, I want to say thank you because I've learned quite a bit of different management and leadership styles. I've learned some really great ideas. But when it comes down to it, like I said, the relatability, I mean, the training processes are what they are. The pieces of the business that are critical to come together are absolutely important. But I feel like there was so much talking about the technical pieces of those that are important, but we weren't bringing an opportunity to provoke thought on how we relate it to our teams. Mm-hmm. And because I have learned, especially in this industry, that a lot of times our teams aren't wrapped up in all those small details. It's not that they don't care about them, but they have so much right in front of them. And with, labor shortages and more on people's plates, I choose to lead by decluttering a lot of that for them and being able to just continually and consistently message the critical KPIs that are important to their daily tasks that will help them stay successful. And if we get those fine-tuned and we're doing what we need to there, it's going to bring the rest of the business together.
Absolutely. And I just think you have such a way of presenting the thought-provoking like messages without being like too like offensive, I guess. I don't know if that's the right word, but like you just have really strong writing style of like, this is, you just lay it out. So where do you think that comes from? Like, why, how do you, what do you think about when you're like, how does it come together?
Well, I think a lot of it was I was a very precocious child and I was always in trouble. and, and part of my punishment, or most of my punishment, was my parents would make me write essays on why I got in trouble. And being obnoxious like I was, many times they got kicked back like a teacher and I had to rewrite them because I was being obnoxious. And so I think that's where I get a lot of my writing style. But I've also learned the value of, I think that we live in a society where we are conflating so many of the different debates and issues of everything that's so, like the hot button topics that's in front of us, that we tend to get nervous to lay it out. And, I believe, and I think everybody can tell from my posts, I truly believe in the servant leadership. I truly believe in that motto. And part of that type of leadership is building bonds so strong with your teams that you can lay it out there. And you have to have it be a two-way street. Accountability for me is I expect my team to hold me just as accountable as I hold them. And when you build those relationships, we're busy. We're all busy. We don't have time to sugarcoat things. We don't have time to tiptoe to tulips. When there's an issue, we got to be comfortable enough with each other to stop and address the issues and then move on.
Yeah, absolutely. And so how do you feel about those personality tests and like understanding the different personality types? Because like some personalities may not take well to some how we deliver things as leaders. So do you guys have any of that, or have you tried any of that, or what's your thoughts on that?
So that's actually a great question. And no, we don't do any, it's something that I'm looking about doing. I'm adding to actually my onboarding process. It's something that I just recently started looking at, but I think that is a fantastic point. And I think that when we can, as leaders, get to know each individual's personalities, it helps us tailor our approach. We're not a one-size-fits-all business. I mean, our processes, like we mentioned, are the same. They need to come together at the end. But we need to do a better job of understanding personalities. We need to do a better job of understanding what motivates people, because it's not always money.
Yeah.
And so when you can take the time to learn those bits and pieces of the people and quit, they're not numbers, they're not just center numbers, they're people. And you get better results. And I have some of my teams where there's a couple of managers on my team where we can have really heated, candid conversations. Others I can't. And I think that also goes down to understanding how important it is to know what to address as a team, but most of the leadership is addressing at an individual level.
That's important. I always kind of relate it back to like parenting too, because I feel like I'm going through that with a 4-year-old. And there's certain times where I have to like separate her and individually address some things. Because right now I'm not managing a team. So, but I can, it makes sense. And then once your team, like when you show them what their personality type is, because some people kind of don't realize sometimes what type of personality they have, then they start seeing it in their customers. So then they're able to like understand, okay, maybe this customer is like this and I need to deliver this message in this way. I mean, it's just, I think it overall helps the full circle.
Absolutely. And, this is one of the rare businesses where we are not only, front facing with our customers, so we have to be chameleons there. Just as much as we're trying to find the common ground and the motivators and the personalities of our teams, we have to make sure that we're giving tools and tips to do that with the customers as well. And I think we miss that in this industry. And I think that plays into the whole customer experience and the retention issues that we've have currently going on is people get so busy, and especially in a field that is so technical, it's easy to put on our technical hat and speak technically instead of speaking personally. And it's something that we have to stay super cognitive of, and it's something that we should be messaging to our teams, in my humble opinion, often.
Oh yeah. Constantly be studying, constantly be training and working with the team. That's how we grow and improve. So you're technically kind of competition to like dealerships. So I always hear like in conversations or stats, just like, the dealerships are compared to independents. Where do you feel like you kind of come ahead of dealerships, or how, or why? Because there's always these stats of like independents are ahead of dealerships, or they're doing better. Where do you think, where are dealerships failing? I guess is my question.
Well,
I don't know if that's the right question.
so, but I'm going to play the devil's advocate because I have many, many friends within the dealership as well.
Yes, of course. Me too.
So I think that we have a systematic issue. And I think that the industry is lumped together. And I think from a customer's perspective, a technician is a technician, a service shop is a service shop. And I think for years, we've had this battle of the dealerships versus the independents. And there's always been kind of the back and forth. I'm a firm believer that I message this to my team, never talk about our competition. I don't believe in doing business that way. I don't think it's the right thing to do because at the end of the day, we're all part of the same industry. I will tell you that I think from some of the problems that happened at the dealership level, just from my short time in the dealership. Now, again, I've never been in the service department, but I did sell cars. Is I think that the dealerships kind of drove customers away because for many years, they had the mentality of putting on the show. And it was like this excitement for the customer and this, standing in the back office, pretending like you're fighting with your sales manager to make this deal for this customer, that we focus so much on the show and right in front of us now, excitement, that we forgot about the experience. And we spent too much time in the huddles. We did too much time high-fiving. And when we should have been taking that time to be grateful for the customer, grateful for them visiting our dealership and spending the quiet time doing the follow-up, the follow-through, and where we needed to improve as the industry was changing. Because the industry has been changing for quite a while, but I think in 2008, we really had a major shift in the industry. And I think that's when a lot of the customer experience demands started to change. We had, the true car coming out on the web. We had, our consumers were more informed. It was years ago, you could get 15-20% markup on a brand new vehicle, depending on how you advertised it in your experience. And, since 2008, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think we're lucky to get dealer holdback, many times. And that again is because we were doing too much of on the, let's get them in now. We don't wait on the be back bus. We got to do this right now. Well, now here we are in current times, and whoever would have thought that be back bus was going to be so important. And we didn't make the time. We didn't give it the attention when we should have. And so now we're in crisis mode, and it's going to take the very best ran dealership, the very best ran independent shop, the worst ran dealership, and the worst ran independent shop to change the stigma.
Oh yeah. And I love that perspective too, because it's like we're all together. We all need to work together to change that. And it's not, I don't like how it's so divided in the stats and the comparison, because I think that, if we can work together, then it just makes it all better. I guess.
Well, absolutely. And truly successful people wish success upon everyone else. And at the end of the day, when you really break it down, our processes, policies, and procedures are not much different. We haven't reinvented the wheel along this process, along this journey. It's time to take a break and polish the spokes. We've got to regroup, but we didn't reinvent the wheel. We've always done inspections. We just digitalized them now. We've always done advertising, but now we need to focus on the advertising and the experience. It's about becoming, embedded within your local community and being personally, because every shop, even in my 7 centers, are their own ecosystem. The customer base is different, the technician base is different, the management base is different. And so if we could just focus more on everybody in every department, just practicing improvement, I think we could change a lot of the stigma within the industry. But as far as your specific question, and I apologize, I kind of went off.
I don't even remember the question. So I'm glad you.
So as far as the independent shops, why I think that they're getting a better reputation is I think that we have to be a little bit more scrappy. We have to think more outside the box. A lot of the independent shops don't have the big state-of-the-art $100,000 pieces of equipment. We don't have the drive-on rack that tells you your alignment at check-in. And so, and we're not bound to, strikes or, having to put OEM parts on the vehicle, which again plays back to the systematic issue in my personal perspective, until the OEM and the manufacturers and everybody has skin in this game to help change the stigma and to help improve the experience. I feel like we're going to continually be just chasing ourselves in circles.
Yeah, definitely. So let's talk about the parts department and do you guys have a parts department?
We don't. We have parts vendors, and we carry very minimal, inventory, in the stores.
Yeah. So it's a little different in that aspect of the dealerships actually carry a lot of inventory. So I'm trying to think of my question. I want to know just kind of like, so since you guys don't stock that much, how do you know? Because if jobs come in and you need to work on that, like you're making customers wait if you don't have the parts, right? So that's kind of my question is how do you?
Yeah. Well, we have several vendors that we use. Obviously we have vendors that we use in a certain order. We have, our primary vendors and all of that. But again, I think that it is another piece of the industry that, we're talking about. We have a specific inspection process. We want to make sure that we're inspecting the vehicle correctly. We want to make sure that we're presenting the repairs correctly. We do a snapshot of the total vehicle because we want to be able to have our customers make informed decisions on the total health of their vehicle. So parts is not much of an issue to us. We're able to pretty much pull it together. We have oddballs things like everybody else.
Yeah.
But that's where on the aftermarket side, that makes it where it's really critical. We have to be very streamlined in how we do it. We have a certain time we want the inspection process up. We want to present it from the time it's approved. I manage the vendors, even though they don't work for me, but it's managing to expectations and, them understanding that every minute that we wait is money, for us. And generally when I have an issue with a vendor and if it's delivery times or something like that, I'm pretty good at breaking down to what they're costing me per minute that my rack is down. And then I turn that into value and letting, and present it that way. And then I will make decisions on if we need to switch up, first, second, third calls, stuff like that. And then that plays directly into the shop efficiency. Because once I have the approval and I know when I'm going to get the parts or my managers know when they're going to get the parts, we can make sure we're letting the technicians know, okay, we can get that torn down. By the time that's torn down, your parts for the other one that's torn down will be here. And then vice versa, and keeps the racks moving.
Yeah, definitely. You have to take into consideration all the different jobs and managing the efficiency of it. I've never had to do it, but I have to hear about it because I live with someone that does that stuff.
Yeah. And that's one of our technicians' frustrations. I have a really, I have a soft spot for technicians and understanding wanting to understand where they're coming from. I've actually been very blessed. I've had several of them reach out to me on private messaging, and I've been blessed to interview a couple of them, and they're extremely intelligent. They have some really great ideas of how we can continue the efficiency and keeping the shops moving. And, and I think we need to start listening. We need to start listening, and we need to start changing our approach on that.
We do. And just having those meetings or those conversations and just continuously improving and just like I feel like sometimes we just get in this like motion of like it's going okay, we're okay, but it's not.
Right.
Yeah. Just kind
And
of
the
what is
constant talking and the constant, I try to teach my team the importance of walking the shop often, not
yeah.
to be checking up. But a lot of times technicians get elbow deep in something and they're not able to get to that stopping point to holler to say, hey, I'm going to need this. And we need to be bridging that gap between the counters and our technicians. And it's not going to happen unless we can get them at some level being able to see through each other's eyes and walk in each other's shoes.
Yeah. Oh yeah. You can't until you walk in someone else's shoes, you can't really like improve really. Cause then yeah, that makes sense.
I think with the technicians, as technicians are more technically speaking, they're the doctors. They're the doctors of the operation, where the managers or the service writers up front are the pharmacists. And I think that that's where we get ourselves in trouble, because our technicians are very, technical and logical. They're working through, they're trying to figure out what's going on, where our counters are the emotional and excitement because they're the face of the business. They're fighting with the sale. And I think so many times you'll walk out in the shop and you've got a technician who's upset, but they're not upset at us. They're upset because that 10-minute job turned into an hour because the bolt broke. Or,
Mhm.
they're missing the 10 millimeter socket, the famous 10 millimeter socket. And then they don't understand that when they tear down that job and for the wheel bearing, and they're like, oh, great, we need a steering knuckle. It's not the service advisor or the manager is not upset with them. They're just uncomfortable because they got to go back to the customer, And so I think if we could, it's not so much of, I think to start bridging the gap is we need to understand their frustrations, and we need each other to see each other's frustrations piece of it, so they can see where we're coming from. And then I think that's one that we need to work backwards. Once we understand what the frustrations is, then we can collaborate on ideas to help ease that and get a better, smoother relationship between the two.
Yeah. I think it all boils down to and starts with understanding different personalities and also having someone that can really just lay it out there. Like, let's just get real with the problem and let's all work together and solve this. Like, no one's doing anything wrong. We're
Right.
just trying.
And that's a hard thing in leadership right now. It's a
Mhm.
very hard thing. You've either got leadership who is going to be do as I say, and I'm not going to do, or we've got leaderships that are swaying the other way. I get asked many times if I'm weak because I believe so much in kind leadership. And I mean, first of all, I don't know that that's even possible being a female in the industry for 26 years. I mean, that's a battle enough, right?
Yeah.
I mean, but I don't want people to confuse that because I believe in kind leadership, that I don't set expectations and hold to expectations. I mean, we're closing out our fourth straight record year. We just secured it yesterday. That doesn't happen by being weak. It happens by, forming bonds and
Mhm.
having the relationships to where we can have those conversations and they can be productive.
Yeah, that's not weak at all. I think the people that say that comes from the generation
Yeah.
or, you get beat at work and you do your job and you just shut up.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm kind of like because I'm technically a millennial, but like I'm in that line of like where I worked in an environment where it's like you just do your job and you get it done and you don't really have much to say.
Yeah.
And then I'm on the other side too. So it's like I see both sides of it.
Well, I think what it is when you, for me, I can't speak for everybody and I don't want to speak for everybody, but when you look at this whole debate right now, and if you kind of not pay so much attention to both extreme sides of it, but you come to the middle. This new generation has a lot of things right. They really do. And, just like fashion, things come in cycles. I'm of the generation where my dad would be like, "Are you dead?" Well, no. He's like, "Then you're going to school." But it's not that they're wanting to work less hard. It's not that they're not wanting to. I think they've got some of it a little bit right. They want a work-life balance. And I don't know, I can't say that is a terrible thing to want to have.
No.
And they want more opportunity to be part of the input that directs the output, which this industry has been missing for years. This industry has been so reactionary. Let's deal with the excitement in front of us and then let's sweep the chaos under the rug. And we for years always had somebody else to blame for our downfalls, but us.
Yeah.
We don't want to look in the mirror to us. And until we change that and we're willing to work together to truly fix it, we're gonna be chasing the same chaos.
We are. And I think that this newer generation, you're right, is we want purpose. Like, we want to be part of something. We want to, and I'm looping myself into that, but I'm not, there's so many, I don't even know the other generations. Right now, I just know I'm the millennial generation. There's like Z, X, all of that stuff. I don't know. But you have a valid point. We need that in our industry, or we're just going to keep on doing the same thing. And also, you made a good point too, was we have to look in ourselves. Like everything if you read self-help books, you read all those books that are like they all start with yourself. There's like, can't improve if you don't look at yourself.
And it's the hardest thing you can ever do. Mm-hmm. It truly is. I am not the greatest leader out there. And, I'm learning every day. I've made many mistakes along my journey with leadership. And, this year has been a year of self-reflection for me. I've had a lot of personal outside influences that I've been having to work through. And when you're forced to stop and look within, it's one of the scariest things that you can do. And, because again, it's human nature to want to blame the circumstances, the excuses. But to fix or to work on yourself is very, very hard. And, and I'm one of those people, I'm my worst critic. I'm the hardest on myself than I think anybody could be.
We are the hardest on ourselves. And I always get like this at the end of the year. I get very reflective. And I think this is going to go out after the new year. But I started listening to a book called The Paradigm. And it's, I'll have to get the exact title. I'm trying to look it up real quick. But I just found it on accident. And I'm like, everything that I'm hearing, all these clubhouses and everything, it's like it's all about our minds and the way that we perceive things and believe. And it's just one of those things that I think every leader should do. But I want to wrap up because we're coming to the end of the time. So I want to find out, just wrapping up question, what do you love most about what you do?
I love the excitement that is in it. And I love the challenges. Yeah. Every day it's a new challenge. It's different. And when when we're blessed to work with many people and the public, you get to learn new things every single day. I mean, and part of our jobs as leaderships is having objections thrown at us every which way and being able to help find solutions and to be able to form relationships. Something that starts with a difference, to me, is the most rewarding.
Oh, I can see that. And you translate that into your content. And I think you're doing a great job. So keep doing it. And if anyone wants to reach out to you, I'm sure they can find you on LinkedIn. But thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me, and Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Thank you for joining us. PartsEdge, the power tool for your parts department. We hope you're leaving feeling motivated, challenged, and inspired.